Hello, hello. How's it going?
Hey, Zane. Got Dorian joining us as well today, also a left
Wonderful.
coaster.
Hi.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Very well.
Wonderful.
We will see who else comes along. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I also thought you asked a great question in the forum just before this because often it happens. Like, oh, we're gonna do a demo. Demo of what?
So yeah, I want to present you today how to turn web applications into mobile applications with a tool that I built. But as you could maybe already figure out based on my comment in the forum, the dashboard is not fully ready yet. I'm still
Yeah.
struggling and making that work in Wized, but the whole backend is ready. So I prepped for this talk today. I just called my own APIs from Xano. So this is how I built that app together that I'm showing you. Now, you will not have to call the APIs to build your app. You will just do this on the dashboard, but the dashboard is not ready. They can call the APIs. But, let me just share my screen and let me show you this mobile app with all native features that was fully built on the web. And let me figure out how I can share my iPhone here. Okay, do you see my iPhone?
Yeah, I see the screen
Yes.
display of your iPhone.
Beautiful. So now, as you can see in the lower right corner, it says Despia. That is the app that I built just as a normal web application in Wist, but you can build it in WeWeb, you can build it in Plasmic, in Toddle. It works with every tool, even React, right? It just, it works as long as it is, serving some form of HTML and JavaScript. And then when I click on here, we're going to see that this actually uses Face ID. So this has access to the native Face ID functionality of my iPhone, and it will only allow me to open the app if it's really me. So let's click on here. You see, it checks for Face ID, and then when Face ID is verified, it is going to open the app. It's not going to open the app when there's no Face ID. And it remembered my conversation that I had with it just a few minutes ago, um, before this meeting. Uh, and I was like, "Hi, I'm talking to Ray very soon," and it gave me like a little prep list of how to prepare for this meeting, 1 minute before the meeting. And this was all built as a web application, and it fully works it fully works like a real mobile application. And it uses now, in this case, local storage. So if I close this, I have to do Face ID to get in there, and it will remember the conversation, right? It will use the local storage of your iPhone, and it will not remove any progress if you close that app. Now, if I want to delete my previous history, for example, I just build it that way that I can click on clear and it will scan my face. And only if it's really my face, it will clear the history. And this is super cool. And now I can just click on here. It opens the native keyboard and I can do, hey, and let's send this. And as you can see, I'm going to get a message from that AI. And, I can say, how's your day going? And it took me like an hour to make this application, which is super fast because, you don't have to go through the native process of doing that. You just have to build it on the web. And now I can do something cool. I can say, write me a super long essay, right? And when I send this and now exit the app will recognize that I exited the app, and the JavaScript facilitated in this app will run in the background. And I will get a push notifications when that AI response came back to me. So let's send this and let's exit the app fast. And you're going to see that I'll be receiving a push notifications. Your AI has responded, and I can click on that notification and I can see my response, which is really cool. And this is all built within the tool that you already love. You can build this in Wized, you can build this in Webflow, in Toddle, in WeWeb, and you can add all those native superpowers on there and you don't have to relearn something or use a tool that you're not familiar with. You can do that, and you can publish it on the App Store with one click.
Very cool.
Really cool.
Thank you so much. Any questions so far?
This is the what. Let's show us the how, man.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
So again, I cannot show you much of the dashboard, but I can show you how I built this and
That's
how the
cool.
technology works on the hood. So let me go and let me share my screen. By the way, this is the dashboard. The design is pretty. I just have to get it functional. But if we go in here, for example, you see that the native Face ID is just a checkbox I have to do. If I make this checkbox, the app will only open if the Face ID that is already saved on your iPhone is validated. And if that iPhone doesn't support Face ID, it will fall back to Touch ID. And if it doesn't support Touch ID, it will fall back to put in your code, right? So this is nothing where you have to use any APIs or SDKs. This is immediately accessing your device knows the password but doesn't disclose it, right? So it works hand in hand with your device to figure out what was entered in here. Is that legit or not? But it will not get that information for security purposes. It will just, use the native SDKs to validate if this password was true or not. And the cool thing is you can call also Face ID in addition. So you can just have this like enabled without writing any code on app open. But if you want to say, before you make the payment, we need to check your face, or before you clear your search history, we want you to validate your face. And then once your face validated as successful, we will run a function that we will clear your search history in this example. You can do that too. And let me show you how. You can just simply set the window.location.href as bioauth, and it will just manipulate the URL. And this will tell the native the native app that is around your web application to please, put a layer of Face ID over your web application. And then when this Face ID event comes back as successful, it will call the onBioAuth success function. And in here, you just put your logic or set your variable to, for example, clear your search history. And I can show you how this would work in practice. So, for example, I have the clear button up here in Wized, but this works in WeWeb too. And I have on event click. And I'm just going to run a function to, just manipulate the href. Now, this will show the Face ID indicator. Now, when the Face ID is successful, I just have a function in Webflow right in here for the function on bioauth success. Now, since I'm using Wiz, it's a little bit more complicated. For the WeWeb people, it would be just 2 lines of code. For the Wiz people, it's 4 lines of code. Because I have to initialize Wized, but this is probably not important for everybody using WeWeb. And then I'm just going to update the variable here, and this variable helps me to figure out when to clear that. So in this example, I'm just updating the variable, and I have the, oops, Wiz gave up on me. It's not changing. Okay, let me reload.
Yep, live demos are the worst, man.
This is not mine. This is Wized.
Hmm.
Okay, now it works. So I have my clear variable, my clear variable. This is false. And this code, when this function is called, it will set it to true. And then I have my function in here when this is true, right? I have my, where is it? Here. When this equals true, I'm going to take the v.chat, which will, contain like my chat messages, and just wipe it out, set it back to an empty array. And then I'm also going to set the variable v.clear to false again, so I can call it again. And this will then like clear my history. So it will start the process of clearing it. And then only after my face was verified, it will then actually set the variable, which will trigger the event to clear it. So you have that protection in there that you will only be able to clear or perform certain actions on your web application after the face was validated or the bio auth or the password was entered, which adds an extra level of security to your web application. Or now in this case, mobile application, right? Because it's an iOS app.
So can you tell us about the about what this application is under the covers? I mean, state change people are grown-ups in terms of using tech. I mean, is this like a native application that's wrapping around like a UI web view on iOS? Is this something more like React Native? Can you tell us what the components are they're actually being deployed?
It's more like React Native, but not for React. Also for React, but not just for React. So the way it works is you have like a real Swift, or for Android it's Java, but you have like a real native app that has all the features you see here. It has scanner mode, take screenshot SDK, app version check, factory reset, loading spinner, native file download, content sharing, native calendar, security and tracking, haptic feedback, pull to refresh, prevent sleep mode, app view and adaptiveness, in-app purchases, Face ID, local storage, push notifications, all that stuff, even dynamic icons. This is the app. And we then just have like a canvas in there, which is 70% faster than the web view normally and more responsive, that will render just like the HTML inside of it. And then you have like the component, the canvas, that will render your web application. But behind that and around it and over it is like the native component of that. So the cool thing about that is when your app is offline, you can build a custom offline screen. For example, in Webflow and WeWeb, give us the URL. We're going to scrape your HTML and put that as a local file in your Swift or Java application. And then it will just fall back to that page as something that is locally downloaded. So think of it like this, like the main app here is the native part, and this will route between different HTML files. It doesn't matter if the HTML file is added locally in there, or if it is just a remote HTML file where it gets it from Wized or WeWeb or Webflow, because it will just be rendered in the canvas. But the thing around the canvas is the whole native thing. And we have the way how it works with the href, so that when an action happens on your web application, for example, the URL, the download link, basically, because it basically downloads your site from your URL. When that download link updates, it will just fetch this and prevent a redirect, for example. And then if it has like something like a mutation observer, kind of like an event listener for the URL, if that changes, it is then connecting with the native component that will then do the vibration or send the push notification and so on, which is kind of like really cool. And you can even send remote push notifications. So you don't even need to connect, let's say, with WeWeb or Wized. Let's say, let's connect with WeWeb One Signal to send a push notification. You don't even need to do that. The moment the user opens your app, your web application can send data to the native part, but the native part can also send data to your web application. So let's say you want to build a web application with remote push notifications for One Signal, right? Normally, you would have to go through a whole lot of process and a service worker, go to Cloudflare Workers, write code. With this, you only need to add your One Signal push and your One Signal app ID. That's it. And we're going to add automatically a query parameter to the download file, where we're going to get your HTML from, so that so basically that Wized or WeWeb can recognize, oh, this is the file, this is the ID associated to this player ID to this user that is logged in. And we're going to then do a backend call to assign those to the device, and then you know this on your backend, and you just call this device ID, and it will directly contact to the native part around that, and will not go through your backend, which has the benefit that your app can be closed or like fully closed, and you can still send push notifications.
Cool.
So yeah, it was quite something building that.
I can imagine. Dorian, are there questions that are forming in your mind, sir, that we can be asking MVC?
Yeah, the first question relates to authentication and how. So my existing WeWeb app is using Xano authentication,
Yeah,
username and password. How can that work in conjunction with the biometrics authentication?
this is like you would do it like the all the banking apps do it, right? The user will log in normally. And if you set a cookie, which you probably set a cookie, that cookie will be not set in your browser, but in the native part of that. And you can close the app, the cookie will be still in it. And as long as the cookie is valid, the authentication to access the application through the cookie will be gated by Face ID. Now,
Okay.
when the user has the cookie and Face ID is successful, but the cookie is expired, the user will then be not logged in and will be automatically redirected to whatever login flow you already have to create a
Mm,
new cookie to be then used using Face ID to access the app more secured, which is pretty cool because you don't have to rebuild any authentication flows. The Face ID part is just around the cookie.
right. Great. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
The design looks fantastic, by the way, you're saying. Nicely
Thank you
done.
so much. This is why it took so long. Um, but yeah, the cool thing is also that you can take in-app purchases. And this is a big deal because Apple, and I don't know about Android, but Apple at least doesn't give you an SDK or an API to figure out who paid. They're very concerned about security, which is good for Apple users, but bad for people selling on the App Store because we don't know, like, did this person now buy? And the issue with, solutions like building a WebView app is the issue that you had is you would redirect the user to a URL, for example. And if the user goes to that URL, you would just add like a query parameter, user123 paid. And then you will, give the user access. But what stops the user from just adding this URL and the browser and getting free access without paying? That's a big security issue. Now, what we have here is, since we have the direct communication from the native part to your front end part, is the moment the user pays through the native part, we're going to redirect similarly to a URL that you can define that will grant access. But we're going to set a custom user agent, meaning you will get a function, and I'm still adding that on the documentation, but you will get a function to check if the web application is being rendered on a browser or on our native mobile part. And if it is rendered on our native mobile part, and everybody gets, by the way, a unique number, so it's hard to figure out like who did this, like the documentation with the number to figure out if it's legit or not will be from user to user unique. So like it's very hard to crack this. But you will have this function that will return a true or false if, like the purchase link is opened through your mobile app or just on someone's browser from someone trying to sneak in and get some free access. And if you run this function, it will return false. You will say, hey, you're kidding, right? You're just you're just trying to access this for free. No. But if it is true, and if it was opened within your native app, you will see, yes, this was open in the native app, and you can add this like as a protection around it. And that way you can offer in-app purchases without having to be afraid that someone just opens the link on your browser and gets free access, like just calls your API. Because let's say you would just call an API on the success link or whatever, everybody can call that API and pass on parameters. And since Apple doesn't provide you like an API to check if that user paid or not, like, just call that API and get free access. But you can pass on the user agent who called that API, which will be our native app, and then your API can verify is that user agent actually legit, because otherwise it would say Safari. But if it has a unique number that only you know, and you can verify that very easily in Xano or any backend, only then you're going to grant access. And this is how we can be close to 100% secure with in-app purchases. It's not like hackers could still go in there, but it's like 99% secure versus 0% secure.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
fair.
cool.
Cool. You mentioned documentation a minute ago. You want to show us a little bit of that? That's our
Yes.
whole trust building exercise.
Yes. So actually, the documentation will consist of videos. So you told me you have to incorporate more videos. So, you have to create your bundle ID here, and it's not fully done yet, but it's like a whole step-by-step process guiding you how to, for example, publish it, right? You have to go to your Apple developer account and, log in, and then you will be automatically redirected. You'll create your bundle ID, which is like a website, like a domain for an app. You could something do like com. Ideally, you want to start with your extension first, com.deskbia, for example, .app. And, then you would go to the next step. Then you would go to your Apple Connect account and you would, for example, this whole thing is interactive. This is the nice thing. I did not want to separate documentation from the dashboard. The whole experience is just like holding your hand and guiding you through the whole process, always with videos and all of that. So as you develop in the application, you are learning what to do. You don't have to go like on university.despia.com. Like the university is in the product editor. So as you face those issues, you find the solutions in the same moment. I hope, but I hope that nobody will face issues with that. But if you do, you find the solutions right under the issue. And then you would just go to the App Store account and, like drag your API key file in here. You would go to the next step. You would then add like the key ID for your API key here, which you can find like, next to the key you created. And then you would just, like get your issuer ID, and then, that's it. And then, you can select your developer account here, which will be, let's say this one, and then you can publish it. And now if you publish it, it will be immediately on the App Store. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to download any file. You don't have to touch any code. It's one click. It's on the App Store. It's not published on the App Store yet. It will be first sent to Test Flight, and then you can test it on your iPhone or on your computer. And then only then, if you like it, you can start writing some ad copy in the Apple Connect account. And Android is coming a few weeks after the iOS integration is fully working. And then you can just click publish and it's on the App Store. And like, because this is not a WebView app, it will be accepted by the App Store because there's actually legitimate technology and, as you can see, a lot of things behind just rendering like a web app. Like there's a lot of things that are going into here that offer native functionality. So it will be accepted by the App Store. And yeah, this is basically the process how to get your app in there. And we also have the SDKs. Now, it's not working yet, so I have to go because I built the whole dashboard actually in Webflow. This is how much I believe in Webflow. But let me figure out where that is. Here we go. So I can actually show you some of the documentation in my Webflow design. Here you go. So you see, like, you have like the SDKs, and we have a lot of SDKs. So let me share that with you. Let's go in here. It's a little bit slower because there are a lot of components in here. Here we go. Let's click on here. Boom. Let's go to settings. And for example, oh yeah, this is cool. You can like decide, for example, if you want to store the cookies and variables. This is what I mentioned when you close the app. You can also have them cleared out every time the user exits the app, or have them cleared out every time the user opens the app if you want to add extra security, for example. And then we also have offline behavior, and this is pretty cool. And everyone using Webflow, please don't be mad at me for, adding a framer link as an example in here. But what you can do is we have a feature where, who wants to build like if I would build my own editor to design the home screen, you will have to relearn how to use that editor. What I built here, and this is actually built with Xano, and it's like 50 different logic blocks in Xano, so it's a lot. But you can design an offline screen in WeWeb. You can design an offline screen in Webflow. You can design an offline screen in any tool that you love. Add the link to that offline screen in here. The tool will scrape the HTML, create a local index.html file, add it into your app, and that screen will fully work offline. And you can even add Webflow animations, Framer animations, or GSAP, and it will automatically download the dependencies without needing an internet connection for everything to work. Which, please don't add like 500 images in there, because that will make your app very heavy, but it will work. So this is also pretty cool. And we have browser and link handling, which is pretty cool because, you know, sometimes you have domains, you say, I want to open a website inside of the app, but I don't want to open this one inside of my app. Let's say I have a separate URL when I work with Google, for example, for authentication. I want to open every Google page like in an in-app tab, for example. You can set that all up. You can say like always open these in browser and never open these in browser and always open these ones in the app itself. So you can really like say, oh, I don't want them in my app, but I want this opening natively in my app, and so on, which is pretty cool. And we have light and dark mode. So you can change the UI colors for like pop-ups and all of that based on your style guide. And you can, for example, you know, make your buttons, your native buttons in any color that matches whatever mode. Like if you have a black canvas, you want to add like white UI text, like this is like battery and so on. And you have full control in changing that as well. Now, for the bio auth, for example, we have like those functions here, and like the documentation, how to use this is already incorporated in like the settings, which is like you just have one place where everything lives. There are no questions. You don't have to go to a separate site to figure out how to implement this. This is all like in one place. And in-app purchases is the most exciting stuff because Ray would now say money is always fun. So you can connect to the Apple in-app purchases and Google in-app purchases natively in here. You're just going to add your in-app purchase bundle identifier and your shared secret. And you can just add like if you want, but it's not mandatory, like a default success path. If you, for example, only sell one product or, you know, they're kind of like all the same. And then you can do like, you have the in-app purchase SDK, which only works using the href. You don't need to run any JavaScript functions. And why did I build it like this? And I know there's like a typo where I have like two quotation marks, so just ignore that. But think of it like this. If you use like a tool like Framer, they're not really going to allow you to run functions. But every no-code tool, like even the low-level low-code tools, always allow you to go to a link. And the way they are built is they just set the href. So you can build like a native mobile app in Framer. You can build a native mobile app in WordPress. Like it's not recommended to do that. But the way our SDK only works using the href makes it possible. Of course, you cannot do the plus and all of that. You would just have to condense that together, but it can work like without, and you know, like you wouldn't have that dynamicness like if you were to use a tool like Web or Wized, but you can do it. Like you can just put this like in a just like only an HTML document, it will work, which is pretty cool. Like on an A tag, for example. So that is cool. And we have like two SDKs. One is for in-app purchases, like one time. You have like your success URL. You can add like your package ID, which you have to define in Apple. So like this will determine the price and the name of the product. You have in-app purchase. This is a one-time purchase. Then you also have subscription. So the cool thing is in-app purchase subscription, let's say you sell a monthly subscription for $9.99 and the user logs in and pays. And now the user goes to the success URL, right? And you can figure out if the user is using the app or not. And then, you know, like figure out if they try to finesse you and you know, you're always one step ahead of your user and you can build it that they cannot finesse you. But if the user stops paying, the subscription expires. Managing this on a web application is always a pain because, you know, you have to then talk to Stripe and figure out did the user pay or stop paying and so on. Here, the moment the app is opened, code is being executed if the user has a subscription. And if the subscription wasn't paid, the user will not even go to your application. The user will go immediately to an expired URL, which can contain any content you want. And, like the user will not access that site. And it is like you can then, let's take MemberStack as an example. They have something similar. But with MemberStack, you just disable JavaScript and it will still work. But since you have the custom user agent, which will add a unique ID to every request that you make, right? You can figure out on your backend if the user is actually authenticated to see this content, in which the user is on the expired path, and now the user is from the custom user agent, and the user is not authenticated. You can then have more security in guiding your content using JavaScript because we have the security measurements in place. And it's a native app and you cannot inspect elements. Or it's hard to do. You have to connect to Xcode and be a programmer. So this also is great for people who build membership sites because it reduces the risk of people, going around certain things and getting free access. If you build like a membership site using MemberStack and CMS, like turning that into a mobile app will make it way more secure. And you can use things again like the user agent to make sure that only people who actually paid access the content, which is pretty cool. And then we also have haptic feedback. So you can click things and it's going to vibrate. And you can do this only setting the href. So we have like light haptic feedback, medium haptic feedback, heavy haptic feedback, and we have like different vibration sequences like success haptic, warning haptic, and error haptic. So this is like vibrating multiple times based on what it is. And you can even change the UI dynamically. So you can change, for example, like the status bar color. You can change the status bar text color and like the bottom bar color. This is like where you're, when you have an iPhone and you swipe up. And we also have calendars. So if you open any ICS file, I think, or maybe I spelled that wrong, but like the calendar files, it is going to open a native pop-up in your app to add it in the calendar. It's not going to like open something else. It will use the native dialog to add that to your calendar inside of your app without leaving your app, which is pretty cool. And we have the native sharing dialog. So like, you click a link and it pops up and you can share text on your iMessage and so on. We have like, you can share the message with a link. You can share a link only. And you can, just like share a message, which is pretty cool. Like if you have like a referral system in your app, you can have like unique codes generated and they can easily share that with their friends. We also have a native downloader. So you can add things to your camera roll. You just add like save this image, and then you add the image URL. And this will not go to your file downloads then, it will go to your camera roll, which is a difference. Like if you normally just open a link in like a Webflow app, for example, it will just download it as a file. But this way, it will download it to your camera roll, which is like the native process of doing that because it's a real app. And we even have some cool things like, let's say you're using Wized and you don't want to build like a loading spinner. You can just borrow the native loading spinner just by setting the href and, resetting the href to have a native loading spinner and remove the loading spinner without having to build a loading spinner. So and you can change the color of it. So like there are a lot of settings here. You have also factory reset. If like, for example, something is going wrong, and something is wrong with your app, the user can just set the href to reset and the whole app will restart automatically. And let's say you made an update. You even have an API to figure out on like a little href SDK to then automatically, give you like the version history. And then you can like redirect the App Store to make an update if you want, or say you are using an outdated version and so on. And or like, like hide elements in your web application because the user uses an outdated version that whatever does not support that. But you're also going to get automated updates. We also have scanning mode, which is super cool because let's say you build an app for a ticket system and the user needs to scan the screen, but the screen is like at volume 10%. So like brightness 10%, you cannot scan it. If you call this function and ideally like on, the screen will automatically turn to 100% brightness, which will make the QR code easier scannable. So like I tried my best to think of every possible edge case that anybody could build in a mobile app. We also have take screenshot. Let's think about like this. You are going to have a booking app, right? And the user may book a cabin in the woods and there's no internet. The user books and you can automatically take a screenshot of the booking confirmation and save it to their camera roll so that the user can use their barcode to check into the cabin anytime, even though he or she is in the woods and doesn't have internet. So, and then you also have like app view and adaptiveness. So, you know, some apps need to be like this, some apps need to be like this. You can change, like you can say, I want this landscape, I want this auto, and we even support tablets. So you can do like, I want the tablet to be portrait, I want the tablet to be landscape, or I want it to be, you know, like changeable. You just rotate and the app changes. So you can even build iPad apps with that, which is pretty cool and be like in the original format. You also have something called prevent sleep. Let's say you're booking an app that you're building an app that needs to be on all the time. Let's say you are building the next Rabbit R1 as a mobile app, and you know that thing needs to drain your battery and needs to kill your iPhone battery in 2 hours. So if you want that app to be on all the time, you just simply check this box and it will be on all the time. And unless, you know, like you just turn off your iPhone. You also have pull to refresh. Sometimes you need to refresh your, like, if you want to reload your data, you can just have the user refresh, and it will then refetch the HTML file served from your front-end provider. And of course, we know it's all about marketing. You can also ask for a 5-star review. So like after some time of the user using the app, and it will automatically base it on user behavior. So like if the user is actively interacting with your app, it will hear and then recommend, hey, do you want to give us a 5-star review? Please do. And if your user says no, it will then after some time pop up again, depending on how they use their app. Like you don't want to have this on the first day. And those are basically all the functionalities, but there's also more that is all predefined. For example, like you don't have to worry about like, for example, like the when you build a mobile application normally, sometimes you can, like, if you use a web view or something, you could zoom in, or you like some things are not represented directly, or you get like a scroll bar and so on. We automatically make sure that those things don't happen. Like, because it is based on how your front end is built, sometimes the code that your front end doesn't really make it like fluid to be a mobile app. And we automatically make sure that it just flows. It just looks nice. And this is like the magic that we do on the background. And like, you don't need to do the settings for that, because like, this is the value that this solution brings to you. Any questions so far? Yeah.
I came late to the game. I apologize. I hadn't done a meeting, but I'm gonna rewatch this, I guess. So are we using Wized? Is that what you're using to build this in?
Oh, like I built this whole tool in Wized.
Okay.
This is why you can see like this is all built in Webflow, but the technology is all like on the back end. This is all a mix out of Xano, Code Magic, and some Lambda functions.
So I guess my question is, if I'm trying to build a native mobile app using
Oh no, I was like talking how I built the tool that you're going to use. That you can use any tool.
So I'm trying to figure out if I want to learn how to build native mobile apps, right? I'm really good at Web and Xano, and you know, I know Flutterflow is good for that. I'm just, I guess, again, coming late to the game. So if I rewatch this, I'll understand more context. But have you built a tool to help build native mobile apps, or is
Yes,
this you have?
and you can use WeWeb to do so.
So native
Yes.
with your tool in conjunction with WeWeb.
Yes. So
Okay.
you build whatever you love to build in WeWeb. I don't want to like, WeWeb is good for like, the WeWeb fans love WeWeb. The Wized fans love Wized. The Webflow fans love Webflow. The Toddle fans love total. Why should I build the tool that is completely different front-end builder that will just, you have to relearn everything like Flutterflow? I just let you build your HTML in the tool that you love, add your logic in the tool that you love, and I just hold your hand, or my tool just holds your hand on the last step in turning this idea that you build in there into something that you can put on the App Store, including all native features and all the SDKs that your front end needs to do cool stuff like Face ID, haptic feedback, and all of that.
Amazing. Okay, I was not clear when we were dialoguing. I was confused, but now that's awesome. So I'm excited to rewatch this, and I'll probably be connecting with you to learn more offline.
Perfect. Wonderful.
What's your tool
You're
called?
saying, sorry, go ahead.
What are you calling your tool? What is this?
It's called Despia. I couldn't find a better domain under 6 characters.
You're saying when
Yeah.
is this going to be ready for use? Because it's amazing and I can't wait to use it.
So the whole backend is ready. The API is ready. I'm just struggling building this in Wized and Webflow right now because there's so much things I have to consider. And yeah, I just pushed myself to build it in Wized because I think that's good for advertising purposes to say, like I build it in Wized. My whole YouTube channel is around Wized. And but yeah, this is why it's taking a little bit longer because it's built in Wized.
Cool. When do you think we'll be able to start using it?
Probably in a week. Like the whole thing is done. It's just about getting the animations to work. Like you click this and it will do that. Like the whole backend, the whole logic, the JavaScript that does the amazing stuff is all done. It's just about like making the front end work. And this is probably a quick thing. It's just like the way I try to use the tools are not how the tools are being designed.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But this is
Can't
what
wait.
I love doing, and this is why we turn them now into mobile apps as well. So,
will you be publishing something on State Change when it's live so that we get first crack at it?
of course, I'll be posting that. And yeah, any questions, Ray? Any questions? You're the expert. I mean, you've seen a lot of things in the last year, so I'm also excited to hear what you think of this. Oh, we can't hear you. I can't hear you.
You're on mute,
Big
right?
bird. I was on mute just because I was letting you talk and not have any with the noise of the lawnmower going on outside here. Can you describe Scott asked a really good question about using WeWeb. You mentioned using other types of tools. Would you mind could you give us a little bit of a run through of starting from the tool that he loves, i.e. WeWeb, or you're using another Wized or whatever, right? But not living inside your tool and getting it to your tool so that people can understand how that bridging works. Because everything so far has started from the context of your tool, but that of course isn't where the rest of the dev happens.
Yes, of course. So this is my tool. The only thing I need from you is your URL. So in the general configuration, and again,
Where's that at? Oh, I see. That's part you're still working on. So
I'm still working on that.
Someone has
but
in say WeWeb, right? And they're going to give you a URL, and then have you tested it? Are you able to extract it from a published WeWeb site? Does it require self-hosted? What's the deal?
So it doesn't need to be self-hosted. You can host yourself. You can host with WeWeb, whatever. But what you need is the app name. I need a URL. This can be of a static HTML file on a CDN. This can be a Webflow site. This can be a WeWeb link. It doesn't matter. It can even be a Cloudflare worker that will host your Webflow site into your whatever site so that you don't have to pay for their hosting. Like you can be as creative. It just needs to be a link where your file or your site is on. And then you need to verify your ownership because everybody can just add a link. So you need to add a little script tag in here with like Despia app and your unique app ID so that we know that you are able to make like this is your thing, right? Otherwise, you could just go to Amazon and build an Amazon app.
Got it. And this will and just for clarity, you need to have, for example, if this is a Webflow app, you need to have published the Webflow app in order for this to be able to pick it up.
Yes, but the cool thing is when you make a publish on Webflow or on WeWeb, you will not need to publish an app update because it will always, re-update that when the user restarts the app. And you can even have like logic going on that, for example, if you made this update, you can add like JavaScript on your side to then, like next time it's being opened, that it will reload the whole thing. Now, the cool thing is if you use a tool like Wized that will charge you a decent amount of money for using a CDN and will not allow you to self-host, you can save a lot of money because the whole app is being cached to the device. The JavaScript files are being cached. So let me actually go back to my device here. And let me share my screen of my iPhone again. Because the cool thing is, do you see my iPhone? Perfect.
Yes.
So when I open the app, you see, like, this is not like, if I close it again and open it again, this is not counted as a page view. This is not reloading the script, right? Which is pretty cool, because now more than likely in your daily use case of a user, they're going to have the app, they're going to close the app, they're going to open a different app and open it again. It will be fully functional. Things can run in the background. I can do like write an essay, for example, and things will work fully in the background. I'm going to get my push notifications, but all of this happening, and when I click on here and open it, this is all just one page view. You're not going to pay for now 10 page views interacting through the whole experience. And, until the user does this and clicks again on here, and now we have Face ID, this is another page view. But the page view itself, while being in a native app that caches the things and stores them like temporarily on the local drive, can reduce the money that you're paying if you're hosting with those companies drastically, because the lifespan of a session is way longer and way better maintained than if the app is in your browser. If the app is in your browser, and this is just like a usability thing, people open different sites on the browser or they're not refreshed, you are working within browser limitations. But if it's an app, this is the default usage. You open it and you close it and it will be cached and you will not pay again for that. So you can go, for example, if you use something like Wized, 300,000 page views instead of being 1,000 users can be 30,000 users, which will reduce your cost that you're going to pay for the tool initially, especially if you're selling more things on the lower end, like $5 subscription. This can make a big difference, right?
Very cool. What about working offline? If your network were off, would it still work?
And if your network is off, it will just go to an offline screen. Actually, let me let's see.
All right, that's
I can
important.
show you.
Okay.
I can show you this one. So if my if my internet is off and I try to do anything, it will just go to a local HTML file here, which as you can see, you would update this. This would be like any file. Let's see, maybe I have a better example here. And I can update the things with Face ID, but I think I may overrode that. But you can build the offline screen. The offline screen has to be an index HTML file, and you can build this in any tool you want. And you just need to give us the URL in the tool, and we're going to scrape the HTML, download all the dependencies, put them as raw files, base64, inside of your HTML file. And the benefit of that is then that, you can just have like cool animations going on without having to have those things run on the internet, right? You can have like Webflow animations or like loaders or like an icon and so on.
Cool.
But I didn't prepare for that for an example because I just built this app like in an hour. So
Right. Well, actually, I think that would make for a pretty compelling demo. And I appreciate where you are in the process. But like, I think hey, I've got an app and does some fun things. Let's enable it for this, and then cut
Yeah.
over. I'm imagining that people aren't going to be starting from scratch, right? They're going to start with they have an app they like, they want to bring it mobile in. That's the best use case here.
Now the cool thing is, again, you can build your offline screen in any tool that you like. And you just need to give the link, and we're going to scrape that and turn it into a local HTML file that will work fully offline. And that will then be your offline screen. And you can even set it to retry every second to reestablish an internet connection if you want. And then the moment there is an internet connection, that offline screen will automatically disappear and your app will be automatically available again.
Got it. Got it.
So it's pretty cool. It can be any HTML file, but we're just going to turn your link so you can build in any tool that you like. Instead of me building another HTML editor, you just build in the tool that you like and give us the link, and it will work on there, and you can update it anytime.
Right. The yeah, this is cool. I think that the way you're handling using custom URL schema is novel. And a very interesting way of handling it. I like the way you described it as being something that gets you around the way a lot of these no-code systems play.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you think about like Ionic, which is what Capacitor uses, that's largely about providing you with JavaScript hooks, which you get some access to depending on the system, but like URLs are very much more straightforward. Can I ask the other thing that you see a lot in these systems, in particular like Webflow and Webflow its clones, is attributes. Do you also have controls with attributes for being able to embed native components, or how does that play?
You don't need attributes for that, because like attributes are only limited to Webflow. If you use Framer, you cannot use attributes. But you can use href in Framer. Every tool, no matter how bad it is, lets you set the href. So we're not going to play with attributes. We're not just going to be compatible with one tool. And attributes are not that great of a solution if you use something like WeWeb, for example, or Bubble, instead of just like using a thing that is simple for a specific user base. We use technology that is accessible to the whole user base of every tool, which is the href.
Can I bring Dorian into the conversation before I bring in for landing here? Dorian, you have any questions or thoughts before we sign off? I appreciate we're getting towards the end of the hour. People probably need to start prepping for the next thing, which is totally cool too. All right, you see anything last bit of wisdom you want to drop in here to make sure we have it at the end of the recording?
Of course. You can also build things now that if there's no, let's say the user is still on the interface and you don't have any internet connection, right? And like you want to save that API request. You can write, because all the code being executed on here once the files are downloaded happens locally. You can create a variable that will contain like a log of failed requests. Whenever a request fails because there's no internet, you can write those requests in an array with a timestamp, for example, save it locally, and then the moment the internet connection is reestablished, your device will automatically retry that API calls, which is pretty cool. And even with the data that was entered, and then you can build like a thing that will use the local storage to retry that, which is pretty similar how like the Face ID things work, where like updates the local storage, which is pretty exciting stuff, I think.
Very cool, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and showing what you're building here. I think we're all excited to see what happens next, and it's just sort of fun to see the extraordinary stuff that Sage changers are making, and I'm really privileged that you shared it today, and we'll get to see more as it transpires in the coming days and weeks. Please do put it up on the forum. We want
Thank you so much. But the cool thing is that the app that I built to showcase here, that doesn't sadly have an offline screen yet. I forgot that. But I built that app in Wized and my tool together without even using my configurator. I had to use my own APIs, which made it a bit longer. I built a mobile app in 1 hour that uses Face ID to log in, that uses Face ID to gate certain functions of the app, local storage, push notifications in 1 hour. Not just because my tool is so great, but because my tool lets you be an expert. If you're a WeWeb expert, we let you build your app in WeWeb. If you are a Bubble expert, we let you build the app in Bubble, and so on. And the same for Wized. So the power here is you can take the existing knowledge that you have, and you don't need to relearn everything again. You just need to learn this little thing on top of it to make it into a mobile app. And you're not sacrificing any functionalities. What your mobile app here can do is the same thing that a Flutterflow app can do.
Pretty cool. Great. Yassine, thank you so much for taking the time to share
Thank you
this.
so much.
And we will be we'll be keeping this stuff going. Got office hours coming all the rest of the week, and I think you're on the calendar again in a month's time, right? You're going to be talking more about more superpowered Wiz, and we'll get more Yassine wisdom.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me and for talking about mobile applications, because this is now my new favorite hobby, talking about mobile applications and building them, because they're really fun.
It's an exciting space, and we're very glad to have you in it. All right, we'll talk to you again. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Bye-bye.